I started that night already broken. Grief does that to you. It makes silence loud and memories sharp. My brother had been gone 6 months, and the world still felt wrong without him. I took the night security contract at the deserted military base because I couldn't stand being in my apartment anymore. Too many echoes of his voice, too many empty spaces where he used to exist. The base was isolated in the desert, miles from any town. No neighbors, no lights in the distance, just sand and dead buildings. I told myself the quiet would help me think. I told myself the loneliness would feel familiar. That first night, as I unlocked the rusted gate and stepped inside, the wind whispered through broken hangars like breathing. I felt small, tired, hollow, and somehow watched.
My routine was simple. Clock in at 9 p.m., all-terrain patrol truck, flashlight, radio that barely worked. I drove the same loop past the barracks, the control tower, the collapsed hangars. The desert was cold at night, colder than people expect. Wind dragged sand across concrete like whispered footsteps. Inside the guard office, one buzzing fluorescent light flickered above an old metal desk. I logged patrol times, sipped bad coffee, tried not to think. Everything felt still. Too still. Around 11 p.m., the radio crackled with a burst of static so loud I flinched. I checked the channel. Dead air. Must be interference, I told myself. Old equipment. Desert storms. Nothing else happened that night. Still, when I drove home at dawn, I realized my hands had been shaking the entire time.
The second night, something changed. During my first patrol loop, I saw a light on inside Hangar 7. That hangar was supposed to be permanently sealed. No power, no personnel. Yet a pale glow slipped through a cracked window. My heart kicked hard. I told myself it was reflected moonlight, or maybe distant headlights. I drove closer. The light vanished instantly. When I stepped out, the air felt thick, heavy, like pressure before a storm. I swept my flashlight across the door. Chains hung loose, rusted, but recently disturbed. I backed away slowly, radio in hand. Static burst again, this time shaped like a low human moan. I shut the radio off completely, drove back to the guard office, and told myself I imagined everything. But imagination doesn't leave fresh boot prints in desert dust. Every night after that, the base felt closer. The shadows leaned toward me. Sounds repeated themselves. Metal tapping, distant footsteps, doors creaking that shouldn't move. I started to feel watched, constantly, not from one direction, from everywhere. The control tower windows reflected my own face back at me, warped and pale. I found more footprints, always leading toward Hangar 7, never away from it. The radio turned itself on twice with whispering static. I began sleeping during the day with lights on, my dreams filled with sirens and screaming wind. On the fourth night, I felt breath on the back of my neck while I sat alone in the guard office. When I spun around, nothing was there, but my chair was slowly turning by itself. I was no longer alone. Not really. I finally opened Hangar 7 on the 5th night. I told myself I needed proof. The chains were already off. Inside, the air smelled like rust and rot. My flashlight cut through darkness and landed on rows of military beds, all empty, except one. Someone was sitting on it. The figure looked like a soldier in old fatigues, head bowed, back stiff. When it lifted its face, my stomach dropped. It had my brother's face. His eyes were wrong, milky and unfocused. His mouth stretched too wide. He spoke in my brother's exact voice. "You left me here." My knees nearly gave out. I whispered his name. The thing smiled with teeth that didn't match his mouth, and the smile kept stretching. My reality shattered in that moment. Grief became a weapon, and it was aimed at me. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I bolted out of the hangar and across the open concrete, my boots slamming against the ground.
Behind me, something moved with wet, uneven footsteps, too fast. The perimeter gate was half a mile away. My truck wouldn't start. The engine only clicked. The radio blasted static and screaming. I slammed the door and locked it, heart punching against my ribs. A shadow passed across the windshield. Fingers scraped over the glass slowly, deliberately. The door handles began to shake. Metal bent inward with impossible strength. The lights inside the cab flickered. I screamed for help into a dead radio. No signal, no escape. The desert offered no cover. The base had become a cage. My thoughts shattered into pieces. Nothing felt real anymore. Was I alive? Was I dreaming? The shadow outside scraped again. My brother's voice whispered my name from every direction at once. I covered my ears. The sound was inside my head. The windows fogged with breath that wasn't mine. I started to sob. Loud, ugly, helpless. The locks clicked up and down by themselves, as if something invisible tested them. I couldn't remember how long I'd been trapped. Minutes felt like hours. My hands cramped around the steering wheel. I begged it to stop. I promised anything. Outside, the voice changed. It became dozens of voices layered together. Soldiers, screaming, crying. My brother laughed last. Soft, close, right behind my seat. I felt its breath against my ear. The passenger door flew open. The shadow poured inside like smoke. Cold flooded the truck cabin instantly. I saw my brother's face inches from mine again, but now it was peeling, sliding, rearranging itself into other faces, soldiers I didn't know, men who died here long before my brother ever existed. The voice shifted between them. It told me the truth in fragments. This base was never empty. It was a holding ground, a place where violent deaths never learned how to stop moving. They needed replacements. They needed new memories to wear. The engine started on its own. The doors locked again. The headlights turned toward Hangar 7. The truck began to drive without me touching the pedals. I understood then that leaving was never part of the plan. The truck slammed into the hangar at full speed. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. Pain ripped through my body as I was thrown forward. I crawled from the wreck into a blizzard of dust and shadows. The figures were waiting inside, dozens of them now, half-formed soldiers, twisted limbs, empty helmets floating over nothing. My brother stood at the center. He was taller, wider. Wrong. I tried to run, but hands erupted from the floor and clamped around my legs. They dragged me backward. I screamed until my throat tore. He knelt over me and pressed his forehead to mine. Memories flooded out of me violently. My childhood, his laugh, our last argument. He drank them like fuel. I felt myself fading as the hangar filled with shrieking wind and rising darkness. They never found my body, just the wrecked truck at the hangar entrance. The desert swallowed the rest. Now I patrol the base every night again. I feel the shift start when the sun goes down. I feel myself fading into the wind, into the walls, into the dust. I watch new guards arrive with tired eyes and quiet grief just like mine. I whisper through broken radios. I trigger the lights in sealed buildings. I guide them gently toward Hangar 7. I don't want to. I never choose to, but the base is hungry, and it uses my voice now. Sometimes I feel my brother beside me in the dark. Sometimes I feel all of them. We wait. We wear familiar faces, and sooner or later, someone always follows the light.